Welcome everyone to the Voice of Terminus show. I'm joined today by Josh. Say hello, Josh.
Hey guys.
And Lex. Say hello, Lex.
Hello, people.
So we're here to talk about the mechanics on Acclimation. As we previously said on our last stream, and the stream before that, we're going to change out PvP. So no PvP today for those people who were waiting to see that. That's been postponed and will be delivered at a later date. We thought Acclimation needed to be talked about since it's very fresh, very new, and there were quite a few concerns towards the implementation of it and how it's going to function in Pantheon. So, before we even get into that though, a funny side note, me and Lex have been working very hard to obviously improve the mechanics of our website and application systems and stuff like that, and we launched our alpha test today. It's not on the website yet, but it will be soon, and within minutes this application system seems to be spot on how it should be working and what we were trying to achieve for everybody out there to make it easy to understand and so forth. There was one person that didn't quite get the gist of it, but we talked to our legal team to see if this is okay, and let me just go and bring it up right now. So this is the new improved guild application on how to become a member of our guild, and it seems to be working because within minutes of us launching this, we had these two applications sent right back to us within minutes. So it seems to be working well for everybody out there now. We seem to have hit the spot where it needs to be. There's one person though that didn't quite get the gist of the checkboxing, but the legal team then basically came around and slapped a improvement seagull on it. I'll just bring that up for you guys right now, to show that it's actually been approved and legalized by our team of legal heads. If I can quickly find it, there we go, there it is, and there we have it. There's the approved slap application. It's been approved, so that it's perfectly fine as long as those boxes are coloured in, checked, X'd, Y, Z, doesn't matter. Anyway, jokes aside, we had a lot of fun today, especially in our Discord.
A little fun? Oh my god.
We went crazy. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about mechanics and Acclimation. So, as you guys know, they introduced on the first stream on April 27th the Acclimation system, which basically means that the environments will affect us, including weather as well. But the Acclimation consists out of 6 systems that we will be confronted with. And I've brought up some imagery on here to explain this all to you. So the first image on the left basically shows the entire system as it is. On the bottom right here we have these infusions, more or less is what they were called, I think that's the correct term. There's 6 infusions for each slot on your body, be it the head, the chest, the hands, the arms, the legs and the feet. And you basically start out with the middle picture. That's how it basically would look like on your screen when you open up your Acclimation for the first time. And then you have these vials that are tiered as well. I need to get rid of the somebody posted something in Discord. Okay. I was a bit distracted there. I thought I left an image open. So basically the middle image is how it would look when you first open up this Acclimation system, and then you have 6 acclimations or 6 environments that you will engage in: frigid, scorching, toxic, pressure, wind shear and anaerobic. They said at the beginning during their stream that there will be different tiers: tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5. Tier 3 to 5 might acquire you obtaining these infusions via raiding, via epic encounters and so forth. And then basically you would click on these vials and then you would activate these individual systems in your acclimation system. Now, once you've activated these, they basically stay until you change them out, upgrade them, so they don't disappear. Once activated, once you've taken them in, they're at your disposal. There will be mixing as well, so you'll have situations where you will have to basically pick and choose between the 6 and obviously the 6 slots where you want to put them. But let's go and get into talking about it. So that's the gist of it, what we were explained about. Now, there's been a lot of concern about this system because they mentioned the word injection, and quite a few people are on the fence with that meaning of you injecting these infusions into you. And I can understand where they're coming from. And Lex is laughing there. So Lex, I'll let you go and start off with it.
Well, the design behind it is meant to be more of like an immunization shot, kind of idea. But for me, my first thought was just, hold on, I gotta find a vein. I'm good to go.
Yes.
Honestly, I felt very disappointed with the injection part of it. I was also disappointed with UI, but I'm a developer, okay? I understand. This is the first rendition. Look at the very first time that Pantheon ever showed you models, animations, and all that stuff. If you were to look at that now after seeing the most up-to-date stream, you'd be like, ew, ugh. But it got better. And I have a feeling that this will see a drastic change. So I'm going to give VR the benefit of the doubt. I'm just saying that as it is right now, if it were to stay this way, no go for me. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are the same way. And I know you are very fanatical in your disapproval of the acclimation system, because I'm right there with you, to be completely honest. I am. I'm just trying to be more kind about it. But join me. Let's give VR benefit of the doubt, because they've never steered us wrong so far. Let's see how this changes, how this evolves, before we get our pitchforks and knock on Brad's door.
Got anything to add, Josh?
Yeah, I think Lex summed it up nicely. I think that me too, when I saw it for the first time, I went, oh, sounds very weird. I've never come across this type of proofing before. I do think that there'll be 1 or 2 changes. Believe me, I don't think they were even sure when they were talking about it between the first stream and the second stream, as to whether it would be permanent or whether it would only last a short duration based on that. So I think they're not even sure exactly what's going to be happening. So I'm hoping that there's going to be some changes being put in place here.
So let's quickly talk about it, right? What does acclimation basically mean? Acclimation means you adapt to a certain environment. You get used to the heat, you get used to the cold, and so forth and so forth. Your body takes time basically to get acclimated to that environment. And we've talked about similar systems that would absolutely fit perfectly with the acclimation system. Let's go and dig into it right now. We've talked about the situational gear, for instance. Situational gear just doesn't have to just be on combat. It can also work here very well. We've also mentioned something about this. This is an idea that I came up with Sintro, for instance. We were talking about certain plants and herbs being in a certain zone, a certain environment that are only indigenous to that environment, that you would maybe have to gather, collect, or get used to. Basically take a certain food, for instance, maybe even certain foods and drinks that are only inside that certain zone, that area. Also something we would like to see, basically, the acclimation system be a mix of things, not just inject yourself and be done with it. This is where basically the situational gear would play a major role. Now obviously it's a very lot of work to add that system in, because we're talking about things like let's take the monk, for example, from Carnage. In a frigid environment, with that what he had on, he would freeze to death. In reality, he would freeze to death. So one way of doing it is adding in situational gear where he puts on like a bear pelt or something like that to keep himself warm. Obviously, that comes down to the fact of having to put in a lot of work in the design of additional situational gear for the acclimation system. Now, if that's something that they can do, then great. I think it would be a good thing, and something that also crafters should be able to do. When it comes to acclimation and situational gear, that should be a craftable thing through the crafters, the player crafters. Another way that was talked about was spending time in a certain environment. So the more time you spend in an environment of this, being it frigid, scorching, toxic, etc., you basically skill up. You kind of get acclimated towards it. So it's like a passive skill that would basically grow with you the more time you spend in there.
Correct. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think if they could do that, it would really... I think everybody would agree to that kind of a system.
Yeah. I mean, it is just one more skill, technically. But it just makes so much more sense to me. When the weather changes drastically in your own area, assuming you're not in like a tropical area, you can't walk outside in a t-shirt and shorts when it starts to get cold. But if you do it enough, eventually you kind of get used to the cold. That's acclimation. Now, I would love. I mean, like I said, I'm not a game designer. I'm not a developer on the game. I have absolutely no say whatsoever, and I understand this. But if it were up to me, what I think I would do would be have it skill-based, but only have it to a certain degree, because we could sit here and argue the limits of the human body. Your average person can't just walk to the Arctic and get used to it, So cap the skill, but you can also do how a lot of these other games have like an appearance tab in their equipment. It's just a whole separate paper doll kind of thing. You do the same thing, but with acclimation gear. You have your monk, he hits the Frigidaire, he puts on his bear skin, cloak or whatever it is, and it makes him look like he would be warmer. So it helps augment the skill. It helps get the skill to the point where it keeps him there longer. You could do, because, skills starting off low, you naturally run into a problem of, well, it's going to take a long time to get the ball rolling on this skill, putting yourself at risk. That's where your infusions or your potions would come in. They'd be temporary.
I think that the crafters have got a big part to play in this. I think that if they do it right, something like a jeweler who could create acclimation jewels for certain areas, and they don't have to be permanent type of jewels that you can slot into your items, but they might disintegrate after a couple of hours type of thing. So you keep the economy going in that regard. And so the jewels could be also upgraded over time as well. So that's definitely there's many different ways they could take this, I think.
I mean, with jewellery or even situational gear, depending on how in depth they really want to go throughout the tiers, it can be done simple, where they do tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5, one set of gear, one set of jewellery or whatever. That would be the most easiest way to do it. Then they can give that to certain crafters, like you said, the jeweler does the jewellery, for instance, as an addition. So you can basically have two kinds of acclimation. You have the jewellery that you would acquire, or maybe to keep it simple, cloaks. A hoodie that you put over. So you get one set. You get one cloak. Boom. You get there's 6 different cloaks for tier 1, 6 different cloaks for tier 2, and so forth.
And say that there was like the skill-based system. Like what is being mentioned in chat here. You don't even necessarily have to go with that appearance tab. You could just add enchantments. You can add buffs to help augment it. There's a lot of room to play with. But I mean, in the end, it's their game. Yeah. As long as they clean up the UI and maybe make it just a little less. I don't know. I don't want to insult anyone in VR. I really don't. But it just kind of feels juvenile to me.
The thing is, though,
and I mean that just as in a young design.
the general idea, though, is fantastic. The general
The
idea...
whole acclimation system as a whole is amazing.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, the effects, everything. It's great. I love it.
Yep, and Zathras is right. Maybe use alchemy for this system. You know, like have an alchemist basically have to make the different acclamations, frigid, scorching, toxic, and then that gets basically, and you pass it on to the jeweler. So you can have it go through multiple crafters, for instance. So you have this alchemist making these different environmental vials or juices or whatever you want to call them, or infusions that get implanted onto a ring, and it's timed. It has a certain time period.
Right.
So
And I mean,
like a clicky kind of thing.
right. And I mean, if we look at how many things that are going to be in Pantheon that aren't, I mean, they're in the MMO world, but they're not all together in one game. We do have a lot of extra stuff here, right? Even if it stays this way and we have the very simple UI and it's just a matter of collecting the next tier of infusions, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because there's a point where when you have so many features in your game that if you make everything super in-depth and super complex, you're going to scare away a lot of players. It's just because there's just too much to know and too much to do, you know?
Yeah.
Just to do one simple thing in the game. You know, it's like having to carry around 7 sets of resistance gear while you're still trying to find room to loot because you got to make money. You know, it's just so time consuming just to make it work. You know, so in the end, I understand why they went this way. It's so you don't have to worry about collecting gear and collecting this and collecting that, or having to manage this gear and all this other stuff. So I understand it.
The thing is, what really go on, Josh.
Sorry, I just want to comment on the Lazy Lions Den. He says this sounds like a layer of unnecessary work. Well, if we have a look at the potentials of this type of system, I mean, from raiding point of view, it adds another layer to the raiding side of it as well. So I can understand where the acclimatization system will have benefits to the game itself. But yes, another layer in terms of the injections. Yeah, I could see it from that point of view.
Yep.
Right.
So
now, what if those infusions were only temporary though, instead of being permanent? Like I'm not saying like super low duration, like 30 minutes. I'm talking like, what if they last you a couple of days? You know, you still have the steady flow for the economy from the crafters because they'd obviously make them. And instead of having that UI, you could just get a buff icon and you just click the ones you want. Boom, you're ready for your raid or your grouping or whatever you want to do. You know, it just seems like it's a lot less trouble for them, and we're not stuck with almost like a gotta catch them all.
Yeah, but I just don't. I don't want to see my my limited bag space cluttered with all these different type of vials, acclimatization vials, this stuff, that stuff, etc. When I have to go and raid, my bags are going to full. I'm never going to be able to carry anything else. So they've got to think about that as well.
The thing that I would love to see happen, though, because they mentioned it basically that these would be low-level drops and, you know, easy to find in the lower tiers, and then you would have to go out and maybe do a raid to get the higher tier ones, or, you know, defeat an epic or do an epic quest or whatnot to get the mid to high tier ones. I think that if they're going to do anything with the acclimation system, it should be linked to the crafters. Period. It should be something that crafters can do. It shouldn't be something that is dropped throughout the world. Maybe there can be certain items that drop that are needed for the crafters to create these infusions or clothing or whatever you want to, whatever they decide to come up with. But it should be something that crafters do, period, and nobody else.
Exactly.
I'm definitely not on the boat with the idea of it being something that is potentially throughout the world. It should be something that is crafted by the crafters, but the ingredients maybe are dropped from encounters or something that you can gather as a rare gathering material.
Right. There is lots of potential when you look at it. Like, you have all these vials. Say you've got all tier 1 for Frigid, like Co-Carnage did. You click them, you have them forever. While I'm sure crafters will be the ones making those, yes, you could say there's still a lot of players, but there's still also a lot of crafters. And if it's just everyone needs it once, you're kind of losing a potential market in a way.
Agreed.
Because I would like to see some kind of recycling back to the crafters. Yeah. And this is coming from a guy who's not a crafter, right?
Well, it's like your run speed buffs that you get, especially in EverQuest. Not in EverQuest. In EverQuest, the spells last quite some time, but in EverQuest 2, you had 15 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe an hour or 4-hour timers on certain items, especially when it came to food. And that's how I would like to see the acclimation system be done. That it is timed. That it's not something I just click and then I'm done with it, and I've got it on until I decide to upgrade, or unless I die and have to turn it back on maybe or whatever, activate it. It's something that should be timed for a certain period. Because I want to have that challenge. I want to
exactly.
I don't want to go into a frigid area, do my stuff with my mates and friends and whatnot, then travel back to a different town, or go back home, do some cleaning up and whatnot, go and gather my group again, and we enter into another frigid area, and I don't have to think about acquiring acclimation. I want to be challenged. I want to, be kept on my toes. So if I go back into that area, I haven't got that on, boom, acclimation is going to hit me. I want to see this effect hit me constantly. I have to be able to pay attention to what I am doing.
Correct. No, I totally agree with that. I think I don't understand the logic behind the permanency of these pots. It just takes away from a market, as Lex says. And there's definitely other ways that they can improve it.
Yeah, like I said, first rendition. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect. But it's like, we also don't know how many tiers we're going to have. I don't remember. Maybe there is enough tiers to each of these infusions that there will be a decent market, because everyone's going to need a larger number from crafters. That kind of makes up for it not recycling between players. And let's not forget the progeny system. If you have reason to constantly rotate your characters, I probably won't, but that's another market.
Let's go and think about the acclimation system as a whole as well, what this has for potential for VR. They can use this system even later on down the road if they want to go and spice things up, or create havoc, or do anything basically. They can use that system within a zone that we are all accustomed to, and have a certain area automatically or change to a frigid area. Like we've seen with the what's that other one? Help me out, guys. That purple thingy that they had in the very first stream. What's that system?
Oh, the environment thing.
The environment.
The crystal thing that was.
Yeah,
crystals.
So
yeah.
They could use the acclimation system like that as well, where they fit in an acclimation inside a zone that doesn't have acclimation, maybe. And then boom, that's a little upgrade, a little fix that they can do. An event that happens spontaneously. A certain group of monsters come into this zoned area, for instance, like ice goblins come in. All of a sudden, around that area where the ice goblins have populated themselves, there's a frigid environment. So there's plenty of ways for these guys to even use this system to their advantage and to our advantage for being constantly kept on our toes, constantly seeing new stuff evolve in the game without having major releases of expansion packs and so forth and so forth.
I got a question for you.
Go on in.
Because I'm not even going to try and... There's a good statement here in chat. I'm not going to try and slaughter your name because I'm bad at pronunciation. What if they change the infusion system? Just a small change. You're no longer infusing yourself, you're infusing your armor. So instead of ready to go, it's, you're actually empowering your armor to protect you. I think I'd be better with that one. Just on, the way that clicks in my mind.
It It would work either way. The easier way definitely would be with the armor. You could, like your additional appearance armor slots, you can also add an additional appearance slot for Acclimation, where you basically click on your breastplate, you put in the frigid, and now it has maybe a light blue aura around it, showing that you have Acclimation on your breastplate. Or maybe it's like a visual kind of thing, like a little blue spark or something on your chest, and so forth. So you go through all these different things, and now you've got all these little auras or sparks or whatever. It's the easier route to go. That would work as well. To some point, because like I said as well, if we're talking about immersion and going in depth more with relations to reality and all this, putting on a breastplate of armor and being in a desert environment is going to kill you, dude. You're not going to wear heavy armor.
It should.
It should technically kill you. It depends how far you really want to go with the immersion, with the basing off on reality and stuff like that. It definitely would work. It would be a lot easier to do it through the armor.
Well, actually, John Michael from YouTube actually just shattered it, because he makes a very good point. If it's attuned to your armor, so you die.
Yep.
Right there, boom, you put a hole through it. And I agree 100%. That makes perfect sense to me. Because now all of a sudden, you can't get across that bridge that Ko was going to go across, because your armor's acclimated, you're not.
Yeah, but it works both ways though. When you die, you're naked. So even if you have situational gear or rings, they technically will not be there because you are naked. You have died. So
true.
It works both ways.
I mean, I'm going to admit, I never even considered it. I never even considered dying when I thought about the system. So maybe this is the only way that it can be done for the way that their systems all work together. I mean, it's very possible.
Yep.
It's still gonna be a running gag until the game, till whenever the game shuts down way in the future. That what tier do you have for your feet?
So let's take away this injecting and say you have to drink the vial. Okay, it's an infusion vial. You have to drink it. So you drink these vials. Instead of having 6, you have 1 big vial. Boom, you're done. You drink this vial. You're acclimated to such and such a system. Now, with the death scene in this as well, that makes more sense because it's actually in your body. It's not on your armor. It's not on your gear. It's not on anything. It's inside your system. So if you die, you're still going to be acclimated towards that environment. Would make sense that way. I think the injection thing was taken further than it should have been brought.
What if it was only 2 slots? Like, let's assume there's only going to be up to 2 different acclimation types in an environment at most, right? So what if we only have 2 slots? You basically choose 1, choose 2, and done. Instead of going, I'm injecting my hands, I'm injecting my toes, I'm injecting my head. Because with so many slots, I don't know, with it being injected and there's so many different slots to it, it kind of feels like you are literally a super druggie.
Right, Dark, you're absolutely right there. But the thing is, we have to find a line that will work for all the people that are looking for immersion, looking for a bit more realism when it comes to the immersion and gaming aspect of things. We have to find a level ground that is going to be equal and suitable for almost everybody. We have to take, like Brad said it best, there is some evil that has to be taken, has to be swallowed. Not everything can be done how it's planned or wanted. Some things have to, you have to take a slap on the back of the head and just live with it.
Floating rocks.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a game. At the end of the day, it's just a game. Every game has to decide how far they have to go on the line of ridiculous to realistic. You got to find that nice balance for them. Because, let's face it, if this was a realistic game, the minute your character dies, sorry, buy a new account. Then you're a new person. Or make a new character or something, That would be more realistic. but that's not fun for most people.
Yep.
So it's, being able to see your dead body on the ground, is it realistic? No, but it moves the meter more towards ridiculousness, but it's, with the systems in place, it makes it work, and it works well. So this might be a necessary evil like that.
Yeah, it's not an easy system, and like Lex said at the beginning, we have to give them the benefit of a doubt. There's definitely going to be a lot of improvement. There's going to be a lot of thought going into this. I want to talk about the effects, though, briefly for the visualization. So we've seen the Frigid one where your screen freezes up. Now, what about the other 5? What kind of things would you like to see happen there, if any even do happen?
I think with the scorching, maybe the screen would shimmer a bit.
Or fire at the bottom, maybe, or something, or steam.
Yeah, steam rising around the sides, perhaps.
Yep. What about toxic?
I would actually like
green.
I would like to see like a green overlay across the whole screen, just a light one, to kind of do that whole sick kind of thing. But I'd also like to hear my character coughing and gagging, like oh god, kind of thing.
Exactly.
What about
or like anaerobic gasping?
Yeah, pressure. I would say that your vision would blur a bit.
Yes.
So you would start to lose consciousness, maybe going a little bit darker.
Yep, hear your character kind of just wheezing, gasping for air.
What about wind shear?
I would actually like to see your character's model kind of change a little bit, kind of like kind of shield their eyes from the wind and all that.
What about that effect that they had basically when Ko was trying to move forward in the frigid environment? They had those 3 arrows in front of him, kind of thing, you can see he's pushing against it. He's slowed down. Maybe something like that. Obviously on a bigger scale, at the top of your screen and maybe at the bottom in front of your character. And if you go into first person, you got at the top and the bottom those 2 kind of arrow things that keep on moving a bit forward. I think that would work as well.
Right.
Yeah. Dark says over there, dust scratches on the screen for wind shear.
Love it.
Oh, also yes.
Love it. Or just seeing it like it looks like you're looking at a window with some sand getting blown to it.
Exactly. So it's specks.
I like that.
Hitting the screen.
Yeah. The arrows, I like that, and here's why I like that. The arrows, like say that bridge. Say there's a wind. Was it wind shear? Maybe it pushes you a little bit. So it's pushing you from the side. So you have to kind of, what's the word?
Lexa, lost for words.
Lean into it.
I just lost the word. It was on the tip of my tongue. But basically, you have to
you've been messing around too much today.
I have been. For those of you that aren't on our Discord, please join us. Sometimes we have some crazy days. But back on topic, you have to basically modify your movement so that you're not blown off of that bridge. I like that idea. It almost brings me back to Valkyr's Labyrinth. I probably slaughtered that. Yeah, probably. So where if you didn't walk, if you were running and you stopped, you would slide. And this is kind of the same thing, but the wind's pushing you,
And I'm also curious about that factor. If you got lighter player characters, like your halflings and whatever, against the ogre, there's going to be less resistance and more resistance in place. So they don't have to lean into it as much, maybe.
Now, I want to talk about something completely different that VR maybe haven't even thought about. What about having certain classes, like maybe a druid, being able to actually even use Acclimation as a beneficial for himself or for the group? So we're in a certain zone, a certain dungeon or whatnot and everything. We have, let's say we have now we're fighting off the ice goblins. Now you have a druid in your group. Druid can call upon Acclimation and bring in a scorching environment for a short period of time. And now these goblins are under the same effects that we normally would be.
Yeah.
I kind of like it. I mean, you could say do like an area of effect spell. We'll just say like a wizard that he can do a scorching environment where it's more of a long duration, almost a dot, based upon what's inside of it. But I mean, literally, it almost comes off as an AoE to me, because it comes down to how acclimated or how resistant are they to it. But in the end,
I mean, you could split.
Couldn't
this
you just
down.
say you're casting AoEs and just tell yourself it's like a scorching environment?
No,
Yeah.
but you could break it down though. You could give individual classes individual abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Like Frigid would go to the druid, Scorcher might go to a wizard, Toxic would go to a shaman maybe. Pressure you could give to I don't know, whatever. Wind Shear you could give to I don't know, but you can give it to individual classes basically. So depending on what class you got, you might have the benefit of Acclimation being used.
I mean, I like the idea. I really do. I don't know, it's the developer in me that is having a hard time figuring out how to actually implement it correctly.
Mm.
Because if you don't implement it correctly, it's basically just another AoE.
Well, it's something that this is even something that they could do even at a later point. This is something that they could think about, work upon, take their time with. Maybe they
Right.
can even add additional.
I think I'd be more for having certain classes, say a druid or a shaman, being able to modify acclimation areas.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Lessen the effects, as I think you had the comment above over here about that, John Michael. Just lessen the effect in certain areas. That some classes will be super advantageous in those situations.
Yeah. You just got to be careful that they don't that kind of thing is too strong, because then all of a sudden you're saying in this zone you have to bring a druid.
Yep.
No, 100%. I mean, I don't think that the ability should negate it fully. I mean, you're still going to take damage if you don't have your hard drugs to take beforehand.
Daddy
So,
needs his fix.
boing. But yeah, I do think there should be some advantages to those classes.
Yeah.
Well, we already know that the druid is going to be able to manipulate and play
The
around
environment.
with the environment, with weather to some point. And I'm sure there's going to be other classes out there that will also have similar possibilities. It's just something to go and wonder on about. Manipulating the acclimation
Pure
through
speculation.
diverse classes. And since you brought up speculation, let's go and bring up the disclaimer real quick as well. Disclaimer time, everybody. The Voice of Terminus are not paid for VR. We do not work for VR. We are not developers. We're community fans of the game. Here to help pass the time and obviously talk about all the ideas that are coming through from VR on the game, all the systems. We're here to also help the developers even think of things that they might have kind of run into a blockage.
Falling through the cracks.
Yep, falling through the cracks. Well said. And to entertain everybody. Yeah, that's
Brainstorm
brainstorm,
with everybody.
brainstorm everybody.
Yep.
Brainstorm ideas and
Yeah, I mean,
pass time.
we're pretty flexible when it comes down to what we're talking about. I mean, someone shot my theory full of holes and was like, "Yeah, okay, I understand. I agree."
And the thing is, this is done raw. This is not scripted or anything. So we come at you raw, off the bat. So there you have it.
Yeah, and I'm going to address what was said in chat here. I know they said not to think of the acclimation system as potions, but they look like vials in your inventory, so it's kind of hard.
Yeah. But in all fairness, when it comes to the first showing of it, I trust in these guys. They know what they're doing.
Yeah,
and they've proven that time and time again.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. These guys have been making. Well, actually, the vast majority of them have been making MMOs since what, like probably 1996. Can't remember when EverQuest development started. I remember when it was released, but not when it started. But yeah, they've been making stuff a lot longer than any of us have been probably playing them.
I think Brad was 8 when he first started with the idea.
God.
I had to. I'm sorry, I had to.
We all know that you're going to deify Brad, so I'm going to let it slide.
I had to.
Yeah.
Hey, you call him the greenie weenie, for Christ's sake.
Hey, I say that playfully. I'm pretty sure he's got a couple names for me too. So
I think he's got a
not
couple of names
PG
for
ready.
all of us.
Yeah. But no, I'm really excited to see where they go. I think if they got rid of the slots, because what their UI is really telling me right now is that you're going to have up to six different types of acclimation that you have to prepare for and mix and match, which means they have to make all those slots, which means they have to tell you where they're protecting as a form of immersion. But I don't think you need that. I think, if you only going to have 2 or 3 different types of acclimation, then maybe you can just get away with those. And your tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 system for your infusions, there's more emphasis on getting it, because say you're in an only frigid environment, then every single one of those is going to be frigid. Okay, no question about it. So there's 6 clicks. Whereas if you had a more simplified system, just click, done. Not a big deal. Took me a whole 2 seconds to open the UI and click it. But we'll see. I mean, they may change it in a completely different way that I'm not expecting. But their show.
Yeah. But I would definitely think there should be some system definitely in play where you spending time in an environment also adds as an addition to becoming acclimated towards that acclimation system as well. There should be 2 systems going for this, not just inject yourself. We said it again. We said inject yourself with these vials and you're done. You should also have to spend time in that environment, and with that you slowly gain skill points or whatnot, resist abilities. But I think it was Xmoko posted earlier on as well that having resist gear also will benefit your acclimation to some point, or even become part of the system too. So if you have cold resist gear on, it's going to help your acclimation also. So that comes into play as well, the resist gear too.
Mm-hmm.
So and I still think though that we should have to spend time in these environments. It should be a passive skill that you have to do, and they can add so many things towards that. Even there's they could so much fun stuff that they could do with that. They can add titles. They can add achievements that you have to go out and gather. Become the master acclimator and whatnot. So there's so many ways they can go with it. But I still think, in a serious note, there should be a skill as well. You should have to spend time in these areas and in the different tiers as well. There should be, as we know, there's going to be 5 different tiers, and obviously going forth, there's going to be more tiers. So tier 1. Go on, Josh.
Are those tiers going to be level based? So will I be able to get up to tier 3 by level 20, or is it only level 30? For instance, a tier 3 that you can get that. And that's stopping you from going to areas that you're not allowed to go to from the get-go. Is it going to be stopped that way? One.
Yeah.
I've created a word here. Acclimator. I claim that.
Josh has a very, very good point here. What if I make a level 1 character, all of a sudden now he's got top tier of all of that stuff? Just because I'm in a big guild and I know someone that can make this stuff, there's got to be some limitation to that. Otherwise, you're going to find, the tiers 1 through 4, saying there's 5 tiers, 1 through 4 are never going to sell, except for the first little bit of the game.
I've got an idea.
Exactly.
I've got an idea for this. What about basically, they did this in, I don't know if they did this in EverQuest, but they did it in EverQuest 2 with I think it was not Tinkerer? The other one. What's the other one? Not the Tinkerer. The other secondary trade skill that you could do. Basically, what they did is you had to take bits apart, and then afterwards, to level it up, you had to craft. So they could do something similar with this now. They could basically give you these vials that you take, and they only have a certain durability within a certain tier. So so you've got your level 1 character. He's got this high level gear, but because he hasn't spent time in that environment that has to be skilled up, he's limited. He only gets the effects of T1 frigid stats. He only gets the effect of a T1, even though he's got T5 gear or whatnot on him.
Right. So basically, like they're scaling down of items kind of thing.
It automatically scales down. He's got to spend time in the environments to build it up, because only to a certain point will this injection work, and after that you have to take time inside the environment into account. And like Dark said as well, maybe certain local foods and drinks and everything to get accustomed to it. So that's one way to shut that down right there. Is split up the resistance or the acclimation system into, you have your injections that get you started in each tier, but to a certain point you have to spend time in there to further gain the resistibility, the acclimation process.
Right. And what if it's not even a case of you have to spend time in that specific acclimation environment? What if it's just I can spend time in a winter zone around the dwarves, we'll say, which is just flagged as being a cold zone.
Yeah.
I don't have to be like where Ko was on that bridge. I'm going to just stand there and wait for my skill to go up. I can just be out in the world, not necessarily under the threat of the acclimation. It just goes fast if you're in that situation. Kind of goes up much faster.
Yeah, I like that as well. I think also the Lazy Lions Den also says, why not keep it fantasy? You're in favor with the gods. The gods giving you temporary resistance to said element, climate, and it's represented as temporary runes, tattoos on your body. I think that's also can work, I reckon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yeah.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say that even the temporary favor that you earn actually may become permanent with the more favor that you gain with your gods over time. So that's how you maybe make them permanent ultimately. But yeah, I think it's a decent idea.
I could definitely see something like that for like a priest, because I mean, if we go back to D&D, all of the wisdom caster kind of thing were all, they basically pray to their god to do this, and sometimes they do it. So I can see that as being the justification behind acclimation buffs from a cleric or a druid or a shaman. But I mean, like, what if your character, is a filthy heathen that doesn't believe in a god?
True.
And that's another thing that was brought up in chat as well, from not just from Dark, but from I think Ark as well. Mentioned this. Spending time in one acclimation environment automatically decreases in another. So if you're in the toxic environment, your pressure might go down, or they all go down.
Honestly, I think that would make sense. That to me, that's one step closer to on the realism scale. Because I can tell you, I've lived way up north. I have lived, all over the freaking place, and I can definitely tell you that when you go from a colder area like on the ocean, and then you go to somewhere else that's like by the equator, you almost die.
I went to Italy,
I almost did.
Last year as well. It took me 3 days to get acclimated to that system. I was sweating like a pig. Me being a Brit, we're used to rainy, shitty Mary Poppins weather. Yeah. And we went over to Italy at 45 degrees in the shadows, and I was dying. It took me 3 days to get used to it, but once I did, my body was, perfectly acclimated to it. I wasn't sweating anymore. I was used to the heat. And then I came back over here where it was pretty warm, and I was dying again, because the heat system over here is different, obviously, to the one in Italy. So that definitely comes into the realism aspect, and I think that should be something that they could also do as well. That will block people from, like Smoko said earlier on, AFK spending time in an ice area or a heat area, from just going AFK, spending their time there till they basically require what they need, and then they go to the next one. No, if you go and spend time in there, you've got to think about this, because a different environment or all other environments are going down. All acclimations are going down on the other side. So you've got to think about where you're going to go and where you need to spend time.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, Lazy Lion Den does... I know I slaughtered him. He does make a point, like, what do you do like with an anaerobic one, you know? Technically, or a toxic one, you can only hold your breath for so long. You know, look at the Guinness Book of World Records. There's still a limit. Yeah. So, I mean, it's, like I said, the more we're talking about this, the more I'm becoming more acceptable of how they're doing it.
Now, yes.
Because there's just some things that it wouldn't make sense any other way.
Correct.
It's just, I think the UI needs to be, or something needs to change, because it's got to get away from the whole injection drug reference, because otherwise I will never let that go. We'll be in the game, it'll be through alpha, through beta, into release, and I'll just be like, every day, you know, the minute I hit a Frigidaire, I'll be like, hold on, Daddy needs his fix. You know? It'll just be the running gag forever.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
It's, you know, it's still good though to talk about this because there's so many possibilities that they could go. With that being said, so it's definitely a tricky one. This is for sure one of the most trickiest systems to find a even ground, a balanced ground that is going to be considered good by the majority of people. Obviously, they cannot suit everyone's addiction. They can't get...
Pardon the pun. Yeah.
Apparently they can.
I'm still on there. Funny times. By the looks of it, I'm still on the air. I've still got my funny bone going. Anyway, you know, it's definitely hard to find the right way to go. But with that said, I still think it's a good idea, and like they said, it's not set in stone. It's still subject to change, and when we get into testing, we can also see how it works in game with the mechanics itself actually influencing us as players, the area we're in, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more ideas coming through towards this system as well, because they've definitely got room for this, and I just love the fact that it's actually even been taken in from them to actually come up with something like this. This is unique. This is unique. And we see all these kind of systems, regardless of how we think about it right now in this MMO. But these systems have been in play in single-player games for forever. These systems actually are a major part of AAA single-player games. So why not have it in an MMO? You know, use those benefits. There's so much that single-player games have that we've been screaming for, what we would love to see happen in an MMO. So it's definitely, you know, hats off to VR for actually going the distance and even, you know, trying to think of something unique as the Acclimation system. I'm definitely looking forward to it. There's a lot of potential, a lot of ways to go with this. So with that, I think we'll call it a wrap.
Yep. I think it basically comes down to, let's see where they go before we start flinging mud. I don't like what they have right now. I feel better after talking to you guys and everybody in chat. I feel a little better about it because more of the full picture is snapping into place and why they chose this way. I think now the only thing that bugs me is that UI.
Yeah. It's definitely good to talk about as well because, you know, we've cleared up quite a few arguments for and against, and we talked about other verifications, ways to go, and it's up to, you know, at the end of the day, it's VR's choice. You know, it's something that we'll have to swallow if we don't like it in the end. So that's how it is. Yeah. Not everything's going to be suited to everybody's individual fitting.
Yeah, if it's good for the overall of the game.
Enough with the jokes, guys, please.
I know, I'm trying so hard not to laugh.
But if it's good for the overall of the game, then yeah, right. It's good. I think everybody will accept it, and as you say, I do feel a lot better talking about it now. It's good to talk about it, man.
Like I said, just think about it as if you're drinking something. Instead of injecting, you are drinking something.
Right.
Get away from the whole injection thing. Or,
yes, please.
Or as Smoko said, it's like sunscreen. It's something that you rub on.
I can see the commercials now, like suntan, like the suntan lotion commercials.
Actually, I've got an idea.
You get this chick in a,
No,
in a
dude,
bikini,
I got
she's
an idea.
like,
I got an
no
idea.
more frigid.
This weekend I'm going to work on a video. A sunblock video or frigid video. I'm going to work on something for you guys. I'm going to treat you guys with an advertisement for Acclimation Frigid 10.
Panther 10, back to 50.
I'll get something going for you. Oh, I'm sorry, guys.
SPF 55.
So, anyway, thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining in the discussion and giving out your views and opinions. Definitely a lot of valid stuff there, a lot of great ideas, a lot of pros and cons. It definitely helped us understand it more and think of
thanks
things
for dealing with the silliness. Today's been a weird day for everyone in VOT.
Has. This has most probably been the worst.
Today we've been having a lot of fun, just on and off show. So just don't mind us.
So
in the end, though, I mean, look at it. We can take something that really bugs a lot of us, or a lot of people, us included. We can have a laugh and have a good time talking about it. You know, that's really what this whole show is about.
Yep.
Not about dissecting it and being all raging and just be like, "Oh, this needs a change."
Yeah, basically,
I was at first.
We will critique VR where critique is valid and due, but we're going to go about it in a reasonable fashion because not everything that they do is going to please everybody. It's going to please us as well. Like you've seen today with the acclimation system, we had a lot of doubts about it, but we'll come up and we'll talk about it in a reasonable fashion instead of going in guns blazing and shooting it down and overreacting, because there's no point. Nobody's going to achieve anything like that. We're here also to help make the game better, make the game what we all want it to be. So yep, let's all acclimate. That's the last word. Peace out. Take care.
Cheers, guys.
Be safe, people.